We're gonna start with our upcoming kindergarten teacher literacy engagement event. If Representative Chang, if you could just give us an update of where things stand and how we can support any next steps.
Great. Yeah. So my understanding is that Director Butler sent a letter to OSSI inviting them to partner with us in it, and we are awaiting a response.
So is there any additional support or action needed from the committee at this point?
Not at this very time. I think a lot of this, what we do next, hinges on OSSI's response.
Okay. All right, thank you. That is good news. Our next item on the agenda was an update on AI work. And since Representative Best is not here, we will not go deeply into that. I believe that he is working with board leadership around next steps. And so I expect he'll be able to update us on that. The next
Mr. Chair, real quick.
Yes.
I can say is that we did take this up at our leadership meeting, which was this week as well. And we're scheduling a date with the group that he's also working with, an outside group. And so we have a date, I believe, on the calendar now to meet with that outside group. So that's kind of where we are as far as meeting with a particular group he wants us to meet with.
All right. Thank you, Representative Patterson. So
I believe that group is AI for Equity, who is shared here before.
That is correct, ma'am. I believe Aaron Cooney is the ED, if that's listed on there as well, but that's the group.
Okay, well, we'll wait to see what comes out of that meeting to see what we might want to do next from this committee. Earlier, we had thought that we would likely have a part two of the resolution work we started around AI. And so that may be part of that work. So on to the next item is about the graduate profile work that OSSI is completing. OSSI is planning to share their draft graduate profile with us at the August working session. And so the question for us is what kind of engagement we would like to do around what they present in August so that we can provide feedback and collaborate with OSSI on any revisions that happen before that becomes finalized, which is expected in the fall based on OSSI's presentation they made at the June working session. So part of our engagement, we did agree at the last working session that we would have our panel in September around graduate profiles and what they can be used for. So I want to open up to the committee. First, let's just talk about what we might want to learn from that panel. And if you have any ideas for panelists for that panel around graduate profile work. That would be the September public meeting panel. Kathleen, do you know if is it to our committee to make the invitations for that panel?
So I will be organizing the panel, but since it falls under this committee's themes. It is really helpful to me to know what you all want to actually learn from it. There's a lot of directions we can take when talking about the graduate profile or any of these other topics. So if there's something in particular the members would like to get out of it, really helps me narrow it down and find the right people.
I can go ahead and start, and I'll say we should probably ask President Thompson if she had anyone in mind since she proposed the panel. I think I would be interested in if it's possible, and I don't know if our virtual capabilities are ready for this or not, but to talk to someone from a state that has gone through a graduate profile process and what they got out of doing that. And I'd be especially interested in the work of translating profile into any graduate requirements, if that applies. Any other suggestions from the committee?
Mr. Chair, I
Mhm.
guess as I think about the graduate profiles and what they expect people to, I guess what I want to know, does that make our students any more proficient? I guess is where I'm going with this, because I'm trying to tie it with and wrap my head around that we have a graduation rate is, I think, 70% somewhere thereabouts or something like that. And I'm sorry, I don't know the exact number, whatever. But we have a college completion rate from 4 to 6 years that's 17%, which troubles me. So to me, that says that our kids are graduating and they may have this great profile of what we think they need or something like that. But at the same time, once they enter into a job or enter into college, they're not ready. So I don't know how to put that. You're a better analyst and researcher than I am, but I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around what does that mean to have this profile if our kids still aren't, our graduation rate from college is not good.
Yeah, thank you. I share that concern about that gap. And I suppose that we would want to invite Aussie to, speak to some of these questions as well, since they've, by then we'll have presented the draft profile.
I agree. And I think some of it, Mr. Chair, will also, Kathleen, isn't she the interim superintendent coming to the next meeting?
I believe so.
Okay,
Based on the timeline Aussie gave us, we should be getting a draft at this upcoming working session.
Does that give us some time to start thinking about, because she's coming to our very next meeting, our August meeting, is that correct, ma'am?
Yes.
Will that give us some time to come back to this committee to kind of like more, kind of look at the panel that we would like to have?
I think
on some of the things that we find out from her.
One of the challenges is that we will not be meeting between now because we don't meet in August. So we will not be meeting between that working session and right before the September working session.
But that doesn't disallow us from continuously to work on the panel, right?
Right. So you can send me anything that you think of based off that conversation. We just won't be able to meet to talk about it.
That's where I was trying to go with that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for flagging that issue. I can't name, the person or organization that would best fit that, but that will help us figure out who to look for. Anything from you, Representative Chang?
Nothing right now, thanks.
Okay, so beyond the panel, the next question is, do we want to do, and if so, what kind of community engagement around the profile, getting public feedback on the draft profile?
I believe during the last working session, the members decided you did want to do some type of engagement. That was sort of the extent of the decision making around it.
Okay, yes, and that we would lead that, this committee would lead that. Did we establish that also?
I think so, but we
Yeah.
can circle back with President Thompson to confirm.
I
Okay,
believe we would. I don't think we established it, but I believe that this committee would lead that.
Any strong feelings on what that should look like? I guess, some past versions of this have been survey, the around the report card, we had the kind of town, did we call those town halls? I forget what we called them, but the set dates for engagement. We always have the issue of getting people to join those events or take those surveys. But
Yeah, you know how I feel about this. It's usually I would
Yeah.
love to tack onto an existing event rather than try to create a new one.
Right.
So if we could get the staff's help to see what other events around similar demographics are happening at the same time, and we could reach out to those groups that are organizing them to see if we could tack on, I think that's the way to go.
One thing that I've been thinking about along with this work is, on the one hand, a lot of this seems centered around high school, and so the people who are in high school or working at high schools are going to be the most immediately directly impacted by this, but also keeping in, on the other hand, that we need to have the graduate profile in mind throughout the whole career of a student. But I'm wondering, in terms of engagement, if it makes sense to focus on high schools for opportunities to go to where people are. Maybe we can look for those opportunities as well.
Okay.
What would what format do you think is best? Like a survey or something more conversational? I guess just let me know if you have strong feelings
Okay.
either way.
I'll speak up.
Sure.
I tend to like more conversational things. I
Okay.
think people feel, more inclusive, and you can facilitate a little bit more conversation, richer conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
Okay. And they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
I agree. And I think it's less useful for us to say 70% of people said this than to actually get deeper into the insights of what matters.
Yeah, especially if we've struggled to get a large sample size in the past. So that's the 70% of whatever is less helpful. All right, so we will continue to work on that and try to, I'll work with Kathleen to see if there are opportunities to join in existing outreach to broaden our reach, deepen our reach. And with that, I will move us on to graduation requirements. So as Aussie laid out their timeline, they're leading with the profile as a kind of where we want to get to, and then going to look at graduation requirements to see if how they help us get to where we want to go. And that work will go on into next year. And I spoke with the interim superintendent 2 weeks ago, I think, to ask and talk about what some of the issues that are likely to come up will be, with the hope that we as a board will be as well informed and prepared to engage and weigh in on those issues as possible. So I'm going to name a few of those issues that are almost certainly going to come up. And then I would like to ask you all if you would like us to have panels on any of these topics, or have some alternate way of digging deeper so that we are well positioned to weigh in on these topics. And so some of the things that are likely to come up are whether we should have course requirements for financial literacy or for computer science. As Representative Best pointed out at a previous working session, DC is already at the high end of credit hours required, and so there's not a lot of flexibility. So adding on a requirement would likely necessitate reducing another requirement. But another issue for us to think about is course substitution, or using alternative ways for students to get credit. For example, taking a proficiency test for foreign language that would allow them to get credits for that subject. So this broader topic of course substitution and credit flexibility is another issue that is likely to come up. Community service hours is an issue that's likely to come up, and one that I think, at least in my experience, community members tend to have strong opinions about. And then another issue that will hopefully come up is that of a special ed certificate versus diploma. And that's something that's come up in public testimony before. And hopefully that will be part of our discussions with OSSI. Kathleen has offered to do one-pager briefs on these topics that will kind of give us a start. But I'm interested in whether you all think it's worthwhile to have a panel on any of these topics, or if there's another way that you think we as a board should be preparing for those discussions.
I like the panel idea.
On which topics specifically, or just in general about grad requirements?
In general.
Okay.
Same.
All right, we can aim towards I haven't looked recently at the suggested panel topics, but as far as I know, we're only set through September. Does that sound right, Kathleen?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can work towards something for either October or November, depending on what whether another committee wants panel time. I don't want us to monopolize or assume that we can have October as well as September, but we can work towards sometime this fall. We will do a panel on graduation requirements. All right, and then our final agenda item is a math resolution. As you recall, we have been working on versions of a math resolution since the spring, or since when the committee started. We're still working on that and trying to incorporate the lessons from the panel that we had in June, I think. And I'm not quite ready to share a draft yet. I'm still working on that and planning a couple more conversations before I'm ready to do that to get your input. But I do want to ask your general thoughts about the idea of there being a math fund with funds administered by OSSI to give grants to schools to work on math improvement. That's one idea that has kind of survived through the panel. Representative Best and I have kind of backed off the idea of a task force because one of the things that we took from the panel was that a lot of the work that we had kind of envisioned a task force might do has already been done. But I wonder your general thoughts on OSSI administering a grant program to support schools would be the applicants for specific math interventions. And then more generally, and maybe Representative Chang, I'm especially interested to hear what you would think about OSSI developing a similar structure to what they've developed for supporting literacy.
Starting with grants makes sense to me because it feels like it's the beginning of testing, right? Which we don't have the same data on what works as we do about reading. So using this as a chance to actually kind of sort out what is the evidence-based method that works best for DC students is actually very interesting to me.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear all of what you said. Finding what again?
Sorry if I'm breaking up. Let me type it.
So the same evidence for okay, I see. All right, thank you. So
You want to just read that because in the recording, they're not going to be able to see the chat.
yes, okay. So Representative Chang typed in the chat, we don't have the same evidence for math as we do for reading. So grants for proof points make sense to me. There's less of a consensus around the science of math. So I will take that into consideration and into my conversations that I'm going to have in the coming weeks. And then I am going to challenge myself to get a draft resolution before your eyes before our next meeting. And at this point, I can take us to our new business. In October, our scheduled meeting is at the same time as the NASB conference. And so the question is whether we should reschedule our meeting. I'm not planning to attend the NASB conference, but I don't know if others are. would you all prefer that we reschedule that?
I think we may have to, Mr. Chair, because I know for the first time, because I have not been to a NASB conference, and I'm trying to make it a priority this year.
Okay,
I will also
right.
be there. So it's
okay. So we can confirm this over email, but if you would check to see if you could do the previous week on the 18th instead.
I'm pretty sure that would be okay for me personally, just speaking up. Fridays are pretty good for me. I
Okay.
just need to confirm it.
All right. That sounds promising, and it is also open for me. So we'll just confirm so that we can get Representative Best in as well. But we will aim for rescheduling to the 18th. And is there anything else that anyone needs to raise for this committee?
No, sir. On
All
this
right.
side.
Thank you very much. That concludes our agenda. So I will wish you all a happy weekend, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have a great one, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.